But the first thing I want to do is to show you a few things around the screen that you may or may not have noticed in Blackboard before. So I do want to draw your attention to the top right-hand corner of the screen. And there are a couple of buttons up here. The first one that's really important says edit mode is on or off. So when edit mode is off, my screen just changed a little bit. And I'll show you the difference between those things. So when I click that, it's just a toggle button, so I turn it on and off. So when I turn it on, suddenly there are more options on the screen. There's a button here to create an announcement. There are some drop-down buttons when I hover over things. So when I turn edit mode off, I don't see that stuff. So if you're trying to edit your course and you can't find the buttons that you're looking for, check in the top right-hand corner to make sure that edit mode is on. The other button I want you to show you up in the top right-hand corner is this one that looks like an eyeball with like these arrows going around it. And that is to enter student preview. So one thing that's really important to know is, what are your students seeing in your course? So you create something in Blackboard, but sometimes your students might say, I can't see this assignment. And you're like, well, it's right here in front of me. Why can't you see it? So by entering this student preview mode, you get to see exactly what students see. So I'm going to click on that eyeball button, and you can see this orange bar appears at the top of the screen. It says student preview mode is on. And then everything has really kind of cleaned up on the screen. A bunch of things disappeared. So there's no control panel anymore. There's no, create buttons or anything like that, because now I'm seeing exactly what the students see. So if I was a student and I went to announcements, there are none. So I get this blank screen. If I go to any of these things, there's no content here right now, and there's no way to change any of that because I'm a student. When you exit the student preview mode, you get an option here to either delete the preview user and data, and it's recommended, or to keep it. And I actually recommend the other one. I recommend keeping it, because when you keep the preview user data, it actually creates a student account with your name on it. So I have Ann Fency preview user in my class because I kept this data. So that means I can go in as a student, I can submit an assignment, and I can leave, and I can come back in as the instructor, and I can grade that assignment. And then I can go back in as the student, and I can see, oh, what does the student see when an assignment is graded? What does that look like? So you can flip back and forth between teacher and student if you keep this preview user data. So I'm going to save that and exit my preview. And I'm back in the course. Now, I mentioned that you'll see some drop-down buttons sometimes. So for example, if I put my mouse over on the left-hand side of the screen and I'm looking at this menu, I can, when I put my mouse over it, I get a drop-down, and that gives me some options. So I'll also see that when I have, let's see, I'm going to quickly create something. And so I have an item here, and it also gets a little drop down. So you see those as you put your mouse over them, you get this drop down menu, and it will change depending on what it is that you're clicking on. Another thing that you'll see in the menu is either a little gray box here, which means that there's no content there, or you might see a box with a slash through it. So if I hide this link from students, students can't see this link anymore, and here's that little slash through the box that tells me that link is hidden from students. And sometimes you do want to hide content from students. You might be working on a section and you don't want them to go in and see a draft of it. So you might hide something from students, and that's one way to do it in the course menu. I'll show you another way as well. So in the content areas is likely where you're going to be building all of the materials for your class. So some people will have a button in the menu for your syllabus and keep that separate from what's happening in each module or unit or week. And then they'll have either a course content or weekly content or something where they put all of the content for the course. And the content can be organized in a couple of different ways. One is by folders, so you can have a list of folders, and a lot of people do like week 1 folder, week 2 folder, week 3 folder. And then when the student opens that week 1 folder, everything they need for week 1 is in that one folder. And then when they come back for week 2, they go to the week 2 folder, everything they need is in there in one big long list. Now, sometimes people make their Blackboard courses and they have a lot of content in there, and the screen just scrolls and scrolls and scrolls. And there's a thing about scrolling that is challenging for learners. As something moves beyond the screen, you scroll and it disappears. Now you've put that in your short-term working memory, and you've used up a chunk of your short-term working memory. So then they're focused on what's on the screen in front of them. And if they scroll again, now they have 2 chunks in short-term working memory. And they're using up all their working memory, and they don't have any of it to spend on what they're actually looking at. So the less you can scroll, the better. So what I would suggest is, if you have a lot of content, instead of using folders, I'm going to go to this Build Content drop-down menu. And there is a place here to create content folders. There's another thing here called a learning module. And let me just quickly show you the difference between those. So I'm actually going to go into another course to demonstrate this, because I have some content in here that you can see. So inside this course, I have a folder, and it looks like a folder. It has that icon. And then I also have a module, a learning module, which looks like a little binder with tabs in it. And I'm going to turn edit mode off here for a minute so I can see it like a student. And with the folder, if I click on that folder to open it up, then I can see content in here, and I just scroll through the screen to see all of the content. And this, yeah, it has a little bit of scrolling to do, not terribly bad. But this week 1 introduction, this one has a lot of content in it. So here, what I've done is used the learning module, and that shows just one item, and then it creates a table of contents over on the left-hand side of the screen with all of the other items, and then I have some navigation buttons to go from one page to the next. And sometimes this can be easier for students because they can kind of keep track of where they are, and they can kind of focus on one item at a time. So this is good if you have a lot of content inside your folders, your units, or your modules. Then I would suggest using the learning module rather than content folders. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to go back to this course content, and I'm going to show you how to create a folder. So I have to make sure edit mode is on. So I go up in my top right-hand corner and I click that off button and turn it on. And most of the stuff that you're going to need for your course is under this Build Content menu. And you can see there's quite a lot of things here. So under here, over on the right-hand column, the first item is Content Folder. So that just creates a holding place to put other items. And when you're in any of the editing screens in Blackboard, you'll see these orange asterisks next to anything that you must fill out. Sometimes there's other options on the screen, and if they don't have an orange asterisk, you can kind of ignore them. Or you can kind of poke around in there and see what happens. So I'm going to name this folder Week 5. And then I also have a text box here where I can type in a description. So I just give a brief description of what's going to be covered, what will students find inside this folder. Now, a word about this text editor. It is a rich text editor, so I can actually do formatting like I would in Microsoft Word. I can highlight something and I can make it bold. You know, I can change colors, I can use bulleted lists or numbered lists, things like that. So there are some formatting buttons on here, and in a little bit we'll get more into some of those buttons. So I'm going to, down at the bottom of every screen in Blackboard, there'll be a Submit button. So I'm going to hit Submit, and now my new item goes to the bottom of the screen. So I just need to scroll down to find my week 5 folder that I just made. In week 5, we'll explore early childhood development. So when I want to put stuff in the folder, I'm going to click on the folder title to open it up, and I'll go back to build content again. And now I'll put some other content in here. So the most often one that you'll use is create item. So create item is pretty versatile. It lets me just create content in here. So I'm actually going to put in, even though it's week 5, let's imagine that it's another week. I'm going to say that this is the syllabus. So I'm going to tell students to please download this syllabus and read through it carefully. There will be a quiz. So then what I would do is I would scroll down here to this section on attachments, and I would click Browse My Computer to go find my file. And I have a syllabus on my desktop here. And now I can see that it is attached here. And I'm going to go ahead and hit Submit. And now here's that item I just created. So here's the title of that item, syllabus. Here's the text that I typed in there. And here is the link to that file. And when a student, I'm going to go into student preview mode just so we can see this, like a real student would see it. Go to course content. I'm going to go down here to week 5. Whoops. And here's the syllabus that students see. So if you have multiple attachments, they'll all be listed here. So I do recommend that if you have Word documents that you're attaching, that you also save them as PDF files and attach them as well. And the reason for that is because if you have a Word document, the student has to download it every single time that they click on it. So they get multiple copies of it. If it's a PDF, it will actually open right inside the browser. So the student doesn't need to download it. They can just click on it and it opens right up here. So this is something that's much easier for students to manage if something opens right inside Blackboard. So I'm going to exit this preview here. And what I'd like to do now is to take some time to do some work. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen again. And here is what I would like you to do. I'm going to give you a little assignment. So if you want to write down these 3 things, I'm going to ask you to create a menu item with your name on it so that you can build some stuff. I'm going to ask you to put a folder in it, and then I'm also going to ask you to put an item with an attachment in it. And we'll be around to help you with these things. Okay, so one more time, it is creating a menu item, a folder, and an item with an attachment. And actually, let me go back and share again real quick. So I'm going to go back home, and I've put you all into this class called, it'll be way down at your bottom, UCFDC Blackboard Playground. And you all have instructor privileges in there. So when you click and enter that course, you'll be able to click this little plus sign up here in the menu and add a content area and put your name in it and hit submit. So now I have my content area in this course and I can build some stuff. So I'd like you to create your own content area in this course and build a folder and an item with an attachment.